Good morning. Time for breakfast. We're on Hebrews chapter 9. Now the first covenant indeed had regulations of worship and the earthly set-apart place. For a tent was prepared, the first part, in which was the lampstand and the table and the showbread, which is called the set-apart place. And after the second veil, the part of the tent which is called most set apart, to which belonged the golden censer, and the ark of the covenant overlaid on all sides with gold, in which were the golden pot that held the manna, and the rod of Aharon that budded in the tablets of the covenant. And above it the cherubim of esteem were overshadowing the place of atonement, about which we do not now speak in detail. And these having been prepared like this, the priest always went into the first part of the tent, accomplishing the services. But into the second part the high priest went alone once a year, not without blood, which he offered for himself and for sins of ignorance of the people. The set-apart spirit signifying this, that the way into the most set-apart place was not yet made manifest, while the first tent has a standing, which was a parable for the present time, in which both gifts and slaughters are offered, which are unable to perfect the one serving as to his conscience, only as to foods and drinks in different washings, and fleshly regulations imposed until a time of setting matters straight. But Messiah, having become a high priest of the coming good matters, through the greater and more perfect tent, not made with hands, that is, not of this creation, entered into the most set-apart place once for all, not with the blood of goats and calves, but with his own blood, having obtained everlasting redemption. For if the blood of bulls and goats and the ashes of a heifer sprinkled the defiled, set apart for the cleansing of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of the Messiah, who through the everlasting Spirit offered himself unblemished to Elohim, cleanse your conscience from dead works to serve the living Elohim. And because of this, he is the mediator of a renewed covenant, so that death, having taken place for redemption of the transgressions under the first covenant, those who are called might receive the promise of the everlasting inheritance. For where a covenant is, it is necessary for the death of the covenanted one to be established. For a covenant over those dead is firm, since it is never valid while the covenanted one is living. Therefore, not even the first covenant was instituted without blood. For when, according to Torah, every command had been spoken by Moshe to all the people, he took the blood of calves and goats with water and scarlet wool and hyssop, and sprinkled both the book itself and all the people, saying, "This is the blood of the covenant which Elohim commanded you." And in the same way he sprinkled with the blood both the tent and all the vessels of the service. And according to the Torah, almost all is cleansed with blood, and without shedding of blood there is no forgiveness. It was necessary then that the copies of the heavenly ones should be cleansed with these, but the heavenly ones themselves with better slaughter offerings than these. For Messiah has not entered into a set-apart place made by hand, figures of the true, but into the heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of Elohim on our behalf. Not that he should offer himself often, as the high priest enters into the set-apart place year by year with blood not his own. For if so, he would have had to suffer often, since the foundation of the world. But now he has appeared once for all at the end of the ages to put away sin by the offering of himself. And as it awaits men to die once, and after this the judgment, so also the Messiah, having been offered once to bear the sins of many, shall appear a second time, apart from sin, to those waiting for him, unto deliverance. For the Torah, having a shadow of the good matters to come, and not the image itself of the matters, was never able to make perfect those who draw near with the same slaughter offerings which they offer continually year by year. Otherwise would they not have ceased to be offered, because those who served once more would have had no more consciousness of sins. But in those offerings is a reminder of sins year by year. For it is impossible for blood of bulls and goats to take away sins. Therefore, coming into the world, he says, slaughtering and meal offering you did not desire, but a body you have prepared for me. In ascending offerings and offerings for sin you did not delight. Then I said, see, I come. In the roll of the book it has been written concerning me, to do your desire, O Elohim. Saying above, slaughter and meal offerings, and ascending offerings and offerings for sin you did not desire, nor delight in, which are offered according to the Torah. Then he said, see, I come to do your desire, O Elohim. He takes away the first to establish the second. And that desire we have been set apart through the offering of the body of Yeshua Messiah once for all. And indeed every priest stands day by day doing service and repeatedly offering the same slaughter offerings which are never able to take away sins. But he, having offered one slaughter offering for sins for all time, sat down at the right hand of Elohim, waiting from that time onward until his enemies are made a footstool for his feet. For by one offering he has perfected for all time those who are being set apart. And the set apart Spirit also witnesses to us, for after having said before, this is the covenant that I shall make with them after those days, says Jehovah, giving my laws into their hearts, and in their minds I shall write them. Their sins and their lawlessness I shall remember no more. Now where there is forgiveness of these, there is no longer a slaughter offering for sin. So, brothers, having boldness to enter into the set-apart place by the blood of Yeshua, by a new and living way which he instituted for us, through the veil, that is, his flesh, and having a high priest over the house of Elohim, let us draw near with a true heart in completeness of belief, having our hearts sprinkled from a wicked conscience and our bodies washed with clean water. Let us hold fast the confession of our expectation without yielding, for he who promised is trustworthy. And let us be concerned for one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembly of ourselves together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging, and so much more as you see the day coming near. For if we sin purposely after we have received the knowledge of the truth, there no longer remains a slaughter offering for sins, but some fearsome anticipation of judgment and a fierce fire which is about to consume the opponents. Anyone who has disregarded the Torah of Moshe dies without compassion on the witness of 2 or 3 witnesses. How much worse punishment do you think shall he deserve, who has trampled the Son of Elohim underfoot, counted the blood of the covenant by which he was set apart as common, and insulted the spirit of favor? For we know him who has said, "Vengeance is mine, I shall repay," says Jehovah. And again, Jehovah shall judge his people. It is fearsome to fall into the hands of the living Elohim. But remember the former days, when after you were enlightened, you endured a great struggle with sufferings. On the one hand, you were exposed to reproaches and pressures, and on the other hand, you became sharers with those who were so treated. For you sympathized with me in my chains, and you accepted with joy the seizures of your possessions, knowing that you have a better and a lasting possession for yourselves in the heavens. Do not then lose your boldness, which has great reward, for you have need of endurance, so that when you have done the desire of Elohim, you receive the promise. For yet a little while, he who is coming shall come and shall not delay. But the righteous shall live by belief. And if anyone draws back, my being has no pleasure in him. But we are not of those who draw back to destruction, but of belief to the preservation of life.